In the winter of 1967, a neurosurgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital threaded a probe 2 centimeters into a patient's skull and burned a lesion into a strip of tissue behind the forehead. The structure is called the anterior cingulate cortex. To this day, historians of medicine still cannot fully explain why an entire generation of psychology students graduated without ever hearing its name. You'd expect a brain region tied to human error detection, physical pain, and emotional regulation to sit at the center of every introductory course. It doesn't. Search most 1970s and 1980s psychology curricula, and the anterior cingulate barely appears, a footnote beneath the prefrontal cortex, which got all the attention after the lobotomy scandals of the 1950s. The prefrontal story was public. Doctors were sued. Congress held hearings. Walter Freeman's ice-pick procedure became a national embarrassment, and psychosurgery as a field went underground. But it didn't stop. It moved 2 inches back into the cingulate and it kept going. Here is the first anomaly. Cingulotomy, surgical removal or ablation of anterior cingulate tissue, never actually ended after the lobotomy backlash. Surgeons at MGH refined it, made it stereotactic, made it precise down to the millimeter, and used it to treat obsessive-compulsive disorder, chronic pain, and severe depression. Patients were still having brain tissue destroyed. The procedure had FDA-cleared devices behind it by the 1990s. And yet, ask any psychology undergraduate from that era to define the anterior cingulate cortex, and most drew a blank. The obvious theory is simple. The field just hadn't mapped the region well enough yet to teach it. That theory holds up for about a decade. Early PET and fMRI studies in the 1990s made the anterior cingulate one of the most closely watched structures in cognitive neuroscience. Error-related negativity, conflict monitoring, the brain's internal alarm system for when your actions don't match your intentions, all of it traced back to this one strip of tissue. By 1998, there were hundreds of published papers on it. The science existed. The textbooks did not catch up. If ignorance was the excuse, the timeline doesn't support it. Here's what breaks the leading theory completely. In 1997, a joint task force reviewing psychosurgery in the United States quietly noted that cingulotomy rates had not declined since the 1950s. They'd held steady, even ticked upward for treatment-resistant OCD cases. The same procedure that inspired the phrase "cutting into the brain to fix the mind" hadn't gone anywhere. It had rebranded. Publications used careful language: ablation, lesioning, stereotactic intervention. Anything but the word that would have triggered public memory of Freeman's ice pick. Meanwhile, professional associations drafting undergraduate curriculum guidelines in the 1970s and 80s left detailed anatomy of the cingulate out of standard textbooks almost entirely, even as journal publication on the region accelerated. 2 tracks, moving in opposite directions, inside the same field at the same time. This is the part that still doesn't sit right. Internal correspondence unearthed decades later, cited in later ethics reviews of American psychosurgery programs, shows something closer to a deliberate containment strategy than an oversight. Teaching hospitals kept performing the procedure. Textbook committees kept the anatomy vague. Some researchers have pointed to a specific fear driving that split, that naming the structure clearly, tying it explicitly to ongoing brain surgery, risked reigniting the exact public reaction that ended prefrontal lobotomy a generation earlier. Better, the thinking seems to have gone to let clinicians know the anatomy in surgical training, and let everyone else learn a simplified, sanitized version or nothing at all. It worked. For nearly 40 years, the anterior cingulate cortex existed almost entirely inside specialist literature, invisible to the public curriculum that shaped how millions of people understood their own brains. Some historians reject the containment theory outright, calling it hindsight bias, arguing curriculum simply lags behind research everywhere, not just here. Others point to funding gaps in neuroanatomy education. Both explanations struggle with the same problem. No other comparably significant brain structure from that era shows the same 20-year gap between active surgical use and public teaching. The amygdala, the hippocampus, the corpus callosum, all entered mainstream psychology education within a few years of major findings. The anterior cingulate didn't. No single memo, no single decision-maker fully explains the gap. What's documented is only the pattern: active surgery, sparse teaching, careful language, and a silence that lasted decades. Nobody has produced the order that caused it. Nobody has proven there wasn't one.